Do you remember the show called Splice that aired on Teletoon Network in 2009 and was about a bunch of different species of animals that a scientist spliced together for a science experiment? And did you know that there's unethical breeders who actually do this with axolotls in real life? I know, right? Ew. Firefly axolotls, otherwise known as lightning bug axolotls or other creative fake morph names that we've given them, are created by cutting off the tail or another body part of one axolotl and then grafting it onto another axolotl of a different color. They get their name because the most common combination to create are non-GFP axolotls with GFP tails. GFP means that they can glow under a black light, so giving them a GFP tail makes them look like a firefly. You will never naturally find a firefly axolotl because they are not a real morph. With no pain management and no real reason to be doing it besides for uneducated bragging rights and higher price tags, it really begs the question why it's being done at all. How have we managed to get mostly on the same page with the cosmetic cropping and docking of dogs' ears and tails and declawing of cats, while staying on a completely different chapter with axolotls? It's because most firefly creators misrepresent them as a special morph, which misleads new keepers by hiding the invasive nature of the procedure and creating demand from people who would not be interested if they knew otherwise. It didn't start like this. It started in a laboratory setting with a biologist named Lloyd Strohl II who ran an experiment studying pigment cell behavior and developmental pathways in axolotls. His work used embryonic grafting, which means it's done inside the egg, allowing the embryo to continue developing and the graft to integrate naturally before their pain receptors have even developed to feel any of it. And then once he got his answers, he concluded the experiment and never commercialized it because that was never the point. But we all know what happens when capitalism gets its hands on science. So it's not really a shocker that it resulted in a bunch of backyard breeders deciding to DIY their own version of that experiment. Or that the version they decided on happens to be a lot more invasive and unethical than the original laboratory one. These breeders are creating these high-priced designer pets using post-hatching surgical grafting. That means they're using hatchlings and juveniles with already fully developed nervous systems and pain receptors, unlike their unhatched embryonic counterparts used for science. While some do offer anesthesia for the surgery, it's still way more invasive and painful since these babies aren't offered pain management for healing afterwards. They also heal a lot slower and complications and deformities are a lot more common when it's done at that later stage. And it's not just tails now either. They're even chopping these guys into 3 or more pieces to make candy corn lotls. They're cutting off their dorsal fins or just pieces of it to replace with different colors. Same with their abdomen, sides, limbs, face, and pieces of their head. They're even transplanting their eyeballs. Not to mention how many specimens will be used as spare parts for the breeder to be able to create a certain look in another axolotl who will be discarded or euthanized once the desired parts have been harvested. This is why it's becoming more common to see man-made eyeless axolotls. It is not the feat of science that a lot of breeders want you to believe. They're just leftover spare part axolotls who happen to survive. They had eyes, they just don't get to use them, and they're going to be disabled for the rest of their life because of it. They're not doing research, they're exploiting it. The current production of firefly axolotls for cosmetic purposes raises so many ethical welfare concerns like 1. It's painful. 2. There's a large chance of long-term or permanent complications, impairments, or deformities that can come from the surgery that will result in more pain and chronic stress. And chronic stress affects the immune system, making them more susceptible to picking up ailments and less effective at healing from them. 3. It's a predatory practice. Most of those breeders purposely misrepresent what a firefly axolotl is and the invasive procedure it takes to create them, knowing that their clients won't buy them if they know the truth. That's why it's so common to see them thrown into infographics explaining the different morphs that axolotls can come in, despite them not being a morph. 4. Most of these breeders will be collecting their breeding stock from pet stores, wholesalers, and other backyard breeders with no record of health or lineage, leading to producing even more fragile animals. That's because in order to buy healthy breeders with known genetics, you have to go through an ethical breeder, and no ethical breeder is going to sell to someone knowing that they're going to create fireflies. And finally, it's just completely unnecessary. If axolotls look boring to you with the tissue that they grew with their own DNA, please don't get one. It's clear those breeders aren't going to stop what they're doing, so we have to, and I think the only way we're going to do that is by educating our fellow axolotl keepers until there's just no market for them and no reason to keep making them.
There's a mixed-up group of creatures who are really quite horrific, stitched together with whatever crap was found or could be grabbed, reinvented in the bowels of a lab.